Hey, we're back with Boy Overboard by Morris Gleitzman. We've only got two more readings for this channel for this book before we start our new book, Gangster Granny by David Williams. So let's find out in chapter 37 and 38 what happens to Jamal, Bibi, Omar, and Rashida in their continued journey on their way to Australia. Do they get there? Don't they? Or what happens in between? Let's find out. I look wildly around the pitch for Andrew. We have to get a rescue boat launched. I can't see him among all the weeping, howling people. Then I remember he's out on the warship. A group of Australian soldiers and sailors are leaning against the fence smoking, just past where Bibi is sprawling, sobbing on the grass. I sprint over to them, waving my arms. Quick, quick, I yell. We have to get a boat launched and go and help search for survivors. The Australian soldiers look at me. Now, I scream, before it's too late. There are people in the ocean and my dad can't swim. The Australian soldiers look at each other. One of them says something to me and I can't understand, and he waves me away. I don't believe it, and then I realize what's happening. They can't speak my language. They don't understand. I grab a stick and draw frantically in the dust. A sinking fishing boat, a warship doing all it can. More people in the water than the warship can cope with, including Mum and Dad. The Australian sailors stare at my drawing. This is unbelievable. One of them is actually smirking. Don't you care? I scream at them. Don't you care that my parents are drowning? I cannot believe it. I cannot believe that people can be like this in Australia. One of the sailors stares at me. Australia, he says, and he takes a stick from me and draws in the dust. A big island, and then he draws a long way from it, a small island. He points to the big island. Australia, he says. The smoking sailor smirks even more. The sailor with the stick points to small island and gestures around us at the soccer pitch and the tents and the harbour. Here, he says, not Australia. Jamal, Rashida's voice soft in the gloom of the tent. I don't look up. I keep my face pushed into my damp pillow and my arms wrapped tightly around Bibi. Jamal, Bibi, I've brought you some dinner. It's your favourite. Fish, fingers, chips and peas. Go away, sobs Bibi. I don't answer. I don't want food. I don't want Rashida. I don't want Australia. I just want Mum and Dad. I spoke to the radio operator here, says Rashida, her voice trembling. The warship did everything they could. They picked up the 3 young survivors and they searched for hours. They did try. It doesn't help. I keep thinking that if we'd kept the candlestick, Mum and Dad could have lit the candle and the rescuers might have seen them both before they slid down into the depths, which is stupid because if Mum and Dad hadn't sold the candlestick, we'd still be in a refugee camp or in a government jail. I wish we were, instead of Mum and Dad at the bottom of the sea and me and Bibi on an island thousands of kilometres from Australia. I feel Rashida pushing something into my hand, something flat. It's your soccer ball, she says sadly. When you scored your big goal, it got punctured on the barbed wire. I don't care. Rashida doesn't say anything for a long time. There's just the sound of Bibi and the other people in the tent sobbing. I hold Bibi tight. I hear Rashida take a deep breath, and when she speaks, her voice is shaking. Jamal and Bibi, I want you to know that you have still got me. I know it's not the same, but you have. Thanks, I mumble into my pillow. It feels a tiny bit better, her saying that, but only in the way that the last part of drowning feels better. You still know it's the end, even if you think you can still see Australia. For some reason, this thought makes me cry even harder. When I finished, Rashida has gone, and it's just me and Bibi. Bibi's asleep at last, and that's why I'm lying out here on the soccer pitch. I don't disturb her while I try and plan our future. It's hard to plan quietly when you're crying. I don't want to think about the future. I don't want to think about it at all. But somebody's got to do it. And Bibi's only 10. Jamal? A voice out of the darkness. Even though the moon's bright, I can't see anyone. Jamal. It's Omar's voice, wobbly and uncertain. That's not like Omar. And then I remember his parents were on the boat too. I'd forgotten that. Grief can make you really selfish. Over here, I call to him. He comes and sprawls next to me. I've got something to tell you, he says. My first thought is, I don't want to hear. And the last piece of bad news Omar told me here on the soccer pitch was bad enough. Or it would have been if I'd listened. In fact, everything people have told me lately has been terrible, except for Andrew. But then he's a liar. And then I remember Omar is grieving too. What is it? I say. They weren't on the boat, he says. I roll over and stare at him. Who? I say. He looks at the ground. My parents, he says. They died when I was 2. Neither of us say anything for ages. Well, how did you get a ticket to Australia? I ask finally. I didn't, he says. I hung around a big family in the camp, and when they got on the buses, so did I, and the people thought I was with them. So what about the plane? I asked. Same thing, hid in the toilet. I'm sorry I lied to you, Jamal. Slowly, I take it in. Here's a kid with no parents who doesn't let it hold him back, who goes out and does things like travel to Australia without a ticket. Neither of us say anything for a long time. I stare up at the stars and think about what me and Bibi could go out and do. We could travel around Australia talking to players whose teams have just lost matches. When we tell them what's happened to us and they see our tears, things won't seem so bad for them. In return, they might let us train with them. Omar is fidgeting, and I can see that he's got something else on his mind. Don't ask me about my parents, he says suddenly, because I don't know anything about them. But I do know about my ancestors. Well, tell me about them, I say. They were thieves, said Omar. One of them had his hand chopped off. I remember Omar trying to steal my soccer ball. I also remember him trying to save it from the harbour and clinging onto Bibi, saving her from attacking the pirate. Omar might think he's a thief, but it really is never that simple. I give him a look to show I know. Well, what about your ancestors, said Omar. One lot were desert warriors, I say. The other lot were bakers. I think about this. I think about the things that have happened. I know the answer, and it makes me miss Mum and Dad so much. I'm a bit of both, I say. So we're going to finish there. One more reading now of Boy Overboard to find out what happens next. Stay tuned to Granny's Storytime, and I'll see you later today after I've done a few things to read the final 2 chapters of this book. See you later.